My name is Shelby Bennett. I'm 30 years old. You're not worth the trouble anymore, my father said, standing in the hallway with his arms crossed, while my sister measured my bedroom window for new curtains behind him. I was 18. It was November 14th, 26 degrees outside. I had $42 in my pocket, a 2003 Honda Civic with a cracked heater, and no one to call. I slept in that car for 3 nights straight. Not once did my phone ring. Not my mother, not my sister, not a single soul from the family that raised me. 12 years later, my father found me online. He sent a message expecting a warm reunion. What he got back was a reply that made him sit in his truck and cry for an hour straight. But what broke him wasn't my anger. It was the one piece of evidence I attached. Something his favorite daughter never thought I'd find. I'll get to that reply. But first, you need to understand what kind of family makes a girl sleep in a freezing car and never once checks if she's alive. Before I go on, if this story resonates with you, please take a moment to like and subscribe. But only if you genuinely connect with it. I'd love to know where you're watching from right now and what time it is. Drop it in the comments. Now let me take you back to the fall of 2013, the night everything fell apart. My father, Gerald Bennett, was a United States Marine for 14 years. He ran our house the way he ran his unit, lights out at 10, chores on a rotation chart taped to the refrigerator, and absolutely no backtalk. If you disagreed with him, you were insubordinate. If you raised your voice, you were disrespectful. And if you did both, God help you. My mother, Patricia, was the opposite. Soft-spoken, gentle. The kind of woman who would bake cookies for a neighbor's funeral but couldn't look her husband in the eye when he was angry. She loved us. I never doubted that. But love without courage is just watching. Then there was Jocelyn, my older sister, 20 years old, the golden child. She had a gift, not for art, not for school, but for knowing exactly what my father wanted to hear and delivering it with a smile. Yes, sir. You're right, Dad. I'll handle it. She was fluent in obedience, and in our house, obedience was currency. Me? I was the loud one, the difficult one, the one who asked why, when everyone else said yes, sir. I wasn't a bad kid. I made honor roll twice. I worked weekends at a sandwich shop, but I talked back, and in Gerald Bennett's home, that was an unforgivable sin. The night of November 14th started with a smell. My father claimed he caught something strange drifting from upstairs. He announced, not asked, announced, that he would be inspecting both bedrooms. I wasn't worried. I had nothing to hide. He started with my room, pulled open the top drawer of my desk, and there it was. A small Ziploc bag with something green inside. I'd never seen it before in my life. He didn't ask me a question, didn't give me a chance to speak. He just pointed at the hallway and said, "Pack your things." I looked past him. Jocelyn stood at the end of the hall. She wasn't surprised. She wasn't upset. She smiled, small, quick, then turned and walked away. I didn't understand that smile. Not then. It would take me 10 years to learn what it meant. I turned to my mother. She was standing in the kitchen doorway, dish towel twisted between her hands, tears already running. "Mom, please, it's not mine." She opened her mouth. Nothing came out. My father's voice cut through the hallway. "Patricia, don't." She closed her mouth, looked at the floor, and said the words I'll carry for the rest of my life. "Just go, honey. Let him cool down. I'll talk to him." She never talked to him. Not that night, not the next day, not once in 12 years. I went upstairs. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely fold a shirt. I grabbed what I could. Clothes, my wallet, my phone charger, a jacket that wasn't warm enough. I didn't own a suitcase. I used a garbage bag. While I was stuffing jeans into black plastic, Jocelyn appeared in the doorway. She was holding a tape measure. "I'm so sorry this happened, Shell," she said. Her voice was soft, practiced. She even tilted her head like she'd seen people do on television. But her eyes were already scanning the room, the window, the closet, the corner where my bed sat. She was measuring for curtains before I'd finished packing. I dragged my bag down the stairs, across the living room, through the front door. My father stood on the porch, arms folded, jaw locked. He didn't look at me. He looked past me, at the yard, at the dark, at anything that wasn't his 18-year-old daughter leaving with a trash bag in November. As I stepped off the porch, I heard Jocelyn's voice behind me, soft and sweet, threading through the screen door. "I tried to warn you, Dad. She's been like this for months." I sat in the Honda, turned the key. The engine coughed to life. The heater rattled, then blew cold air. Just cold air, 26 degrees, $42. And that was that. The first night, I parked in the Walmart lot on Route 35. I pulled my jacket tight, draped my one spare hoodie across my legs, and sat there with the engine off because I couldn't afford to waste gas on a heater that didn't work. The windshield frosted over within an hour. I could see my breath. I pressed my forehead against the steering wheel and told myself I'd figure it out in the morning. I didn't sleep, not a single minute. The second night, I moved to the lot behind the public library. Quieter, darker. I figured nobody would bother me there. At 3 a.m, a flashlight hit my window. A security guard, older guy, gray mustache, brown uniform. He knocked gently. "You okay, miss?" "Yes, sir." He studied me for a moment, nodded, walked away. That man, a stranger whose name I never learned, was the first person to ask me if I was okay in 48 hours. Not my father, not my mother, not my sister. A man with a flashlight and a $10 an hour badge. The third night was the worst. My fingers went numb around 9 o'clock and didn't come back. I tried calling my father. The number had been blocked. I called my mother. It rang 6 times. No answer. I called Jocelyn. Straight to voicemail. I sat there staring at my phone. 3 contacts. 3 silences. At 11 p.m., I called my best friend, Rachel Hollis. She picked up on the second ring. "Shelby, what's wrong?" I couldn't get the words out. My jaw was shaking too hard. "Stay right there," she said. "Mom's coming." 32 minutes later, headlights swept across the library lot. Diane Hollis stepped out of her minivan and opened my car door. She took one look at me, purple lips, white fingertips, my whole body trembling, and her face changed. She was a registered nurse. She knew exactly what she was seeing, early-stage hypothermia, 3 nights of it. She didn't say, "What happened?" She didn't say, "Let's talk about this." She wrapped a blanket around me, helped me into her passenger seat, and said the only thing that mattered. "You're safe now. That's the only thing that matters tonight." I woke up the next morning in the Hollis's guest bedroom, under a quilt that smelled like lavender fabric softener. For about 4 seconds, I didn't remember. Then it hit, all of it, and I stared at the ceiling while my chest caved in. The smell of oatmeal pulled me downstairs. Diane was at the stove. Rachel sat at the kitchen table, still in pajamas, red-eyed like she'd been up all night. Nobody rushed me. Nobody asked questions. Diane just set a bowl in front of me and sat down across the table. Then she said it. "You deserve a seat at a table where you don't have to fight for a plate." That was the moment. Right there. 11 words from a woman who owed me nothing. And they did what 18 years in my own home never could. They told me I was allowed to exist without earning it. I cried. Hard. The ugly kind. Rachel held my hand and didn't let go. When I could breathe again, Diane laid out the terms. I could stay, rent-free, under 3 conditions. Finish my GED by spring, find part-time work, start applying to community college by summer, no exceptions, no charity, structure, and a future. I agreed to all of it. The next Monday, I started as a cashier at CVS, 4 days a week. Evenings, I studied. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't inspirational. It was just survival, one 12-hour day at a time. 2 weeks after I left home, I sat at the Hollis's kitchen table and wrote my father a letter. By hand. 2 pages. I told him the drugs weren't mine. I told him I loved him. I told him I just wanted to come home. I mailed it on a Tuesday. It came back 4 days later. The envelope was still sealed. Not a single crease, not a single fingerprint on the flap. Across the front, in my father's handwriting, I'd recognize it anywhere, those sharp capital letters from years of military forms. 2 words, return to sender. He didn't open it. He didn't want to know what his 18-year-old daughter had to say. He made his decision and mailed it back like a piece of junk mail. I put that envelope in a shoebox under my bed. I didn't look at it again for a very long time, but I kept it. 12 years, I kept it. Let me tell you what being disowned at 18 actually costs. Not the emotional part, I'll get to that, but the practical dollars and cents paperwork and deadlines part that nobody talks about. My father held the savings account my mother had been depositing into since I was 12. Birthday money, summer job wages, the $200 Grandma sent every Christmas. It wasn't a fortune, maybe $2,800, but it was mine. He never transferred it. I never saw a cent. He removed me from the family health insurance plan within a week. I found out when I tried to fill a prescription for my inhaler, and the pharmacist said my coverage had been terminated. I stood at that counter in my CVS vest in the store where I worked and paid $47 out of pocket for medication I used to get for a $5 copay. I couldn't apply for federal financial aid for 3 weeks because I didn't have a permanent address. By the time Diane's house qualified, I'd missed the early deadline for 2 grant programs. Meanwhile, Jocelyn was thriving. My father paid her tuition at a private art college, the full amount every semester. She converted my bedroom into a studio. New curtains, new shelving, a drafting table where my bed used to be. Gerald posted about it on Facebook. So proud of my artist. 73 likes. My mother's account among them. I saw that post on Rachel's phone. I looked at it for about 10 seconds. My old room, repainted, reorganized, and captioned with pride by the man who threw me out of it. Then I closed the app, clocked into my shift, and didn't mention it again. What I didn't know, not yet, was that Jocelyn was busy building something else. A story. She told aunts, uncles, cousins, and family friends that I had run off with a boyfriend, that I'd chosen the streets. A version so clean and simple that nobody had to feel guilty, nobody had to ask questions, and nobody did. My father was thorough. I'll give him that. Within the first year, he'd told every member of our extended family a version of the story that made him the long-suffering patriarch and me the cautionary tale. According to Gerald Bennett, I had a drug problem. They tried everything: discipline, counseling, love. Nothing worked. I chose to leave. End of story. My Aunt Gladys, my father's younger sister, the one who used to sneak me extra dessert at family barbecues, called me once, about 3 months after I'd been kicked out. She asked if I was okay, and I started to explain, and she said, "Sweetheart, your daddy told us, you don't have to pretend." I wasn't pretending, but she'd already decided what was true. My mother didn't correct any of it. She couldn't. Gerald had drawn the line. We don't air our laundry, it's handled. And Patricia Bennett did not cross Gerald Bennett's lines, ever. Jocelyn, though, Jocelyn was an artist. Not with paint, with narrative. She posted a photo that Christmas, the 3 of them in matching red sweaters, standing in front of the tree, Gerald's arm around her shoulders. The caption read, "Grateful for my little family." 3 people, a family photo with a hole in it, and she framed the hole as a feature. Megan Torres, a mutual friend from high school who'd stayed in contact with both of us, told me something Jocelyn said at a party that winter. Casual, almost cheerful, like she was commenting on the weather. "Honestly, it's better without her. The house is so peaceful now." When Megan told me that, I was sitting on the floor of my room at the Hollis's house, studying for my GED. I put the phone down, stared at the wall, and then I opened my textbook and kept going. There was nothing else to do. 6 months after being kicked out, I almost gave up. It was a Wednesday. I'd just finished a double, 8 hours at CVS, then 4 hours bussing tables at a diner on 5th Street. My back ached, my feet were swollen. I sat in the Honda in the Hollis's driveway because I didn't have the energy to walk inside, and a thought slid through my head so quietly it almost felt like my own voice. Maybe he was right. Maybe I am the problem. I don't know how long I sat there, long enough for the windshield to fog. Diane found me at 2 in the morning. Not in the car. I'd eventually dragged myself inside, but in the kitchen, sitting on the floor with my back against the cabinet, crying into a dish towel. She didn't hug me. She didn't tell me it would be okay. She pulled out a chair, sat down across from me, and waited until I could look at her. Then she said, "If you believe what he said about you, he wins, and he doesn't deserve to win." She didn't raise her voice. She said it the way she said everything, like a fact, like a diagnosis. and something inside me shifted. Not all at once, not dramatically, just a small, hard turn, like a key finding its groove. The next week, I submitted my application to Columbus State Community College, nursing program. I wrote the personal essay in one sitting. I didn't mention my family. I wrote one sentence that carried me through the next 4 years. I want to take care of people who have no one. I got the acceptance letter on a Friday. Diane stuck it on her refrigerator with a magnet shaped like a sunflower. Rachel took a picture. Nobody from the Bennett family called that year. Or the next, or the next, or the next. In 4 years, not a single word from anyone who shared my last name. And I kept going. Nursing school was 4 years of not enough sleep and too much coffee. I worked 2 jobs the entire time, CVS and the diner. And I studied everywhere. Bus stops, break rooms, the laundromat on Parsons Avenue while my scrubs dried. My GPA was 3.8. I made the dean's list 5 semesters in a row. Not because I was smarter than anyone else, because I had something most students didn't. The specific bone-deep terror of becoming the person my father said I was. Graduation day, May 2017. 4 people sat in the audience. Diane, Rachel, 2 coworkers from the diner who'd covered my shifts so I could study for finals. That was it. 4 people in a sea of hundreds, in a stadium full of parents holding flowers and balloons and signs that said, "We're so proud of you." No one held a sign for me. When they called my name, summa cum laude, I crossed that stage and shook the dean's hand and smiled wide for the camera. But if you looked closely at the photo, and I mean really closely, you'd see it. The smile reached my mouth but stopped just short of my eyes. I posted one picture on my private profile that night. No long caption, no gratitude list, just 2 words, RN, finally. Rachel, you did it, Shell. Me, no, we did it. Diane hugged me so hard I heard her back crack. She whispered in my ear, "Your mother would cry if she could see this." I pulled back, looked at her, and said the truest thing I knew. She can't. That's the point. While I was crossing that stage, Jocelyn was living in our parents' house, having dropped out of art school in her 3rd year. My father was still paying her bills. Nobody in the Bennett family mentioned me. I was erased. Not with anger, but with silence, which is worse. But what I didn't know yet was that my mother had seen the photo. Someone, I still don't know who, had sent it to her. And she cried. Not from pride. From the realization that her daughter had graduated and she hadn't been there, and the distance between those 2 facts was entirely her fault. Years later, Megan told me the full story. I'm going to share it because it matters. Not for sympathy, but for context. At some point after I left, my mother created a fake Facebook account. Generic name, stock photo of a sunset, no friends, no posts, no activity. Its only purpose was to follow my private profile, which she could just barely see through the gaps in my privacy settings. A profile picture here, a public comment there. She watched me from behind a screen name that wasn't hers, in a house where even that small act of care had to be hidden from her husband. Patricia wrote me messages, dozens of them apparently, on holidays, on my birthday, late at night when Gerald was asleep. She'd type them out, reread them, and delete them before hitting send. Every time. For years. She never sent a single one. I want to be clear about something. I understand why she was afraid. Gerald Bennett was not a man who tolerated dissent, and by the time I was kicked out, my mother had spent 25 years learning that lesson. Fear is real. I don't minimize it. But here's what I also know. Loving someone from a distance doesn't count if you chose the distance. She had a car. She had a phone. She could have driven to the Hollis's house any Tuesday afternoon while Gerald was at work. She didn't. Fear kept her still, and stillness kept me alone. There's one more thing. Jocelyn found out about the fake account. Megan told me this too. Jocelyn didn't report it to Gerald. That would have been too direct. Instead, she used it as leverage. Quiet, surgical leverage. I know what you're doing online, Mom. Don't make me tell Dad. That was Jocelyn, always holding the leash she never had to pull because the threat was enough. My mother stayed silent. My sister stayed in control, and the years kept passing. After graduation, I took a position at Riverside Methodist Hospital in Columbus, emergency department, 12-hour shifts, chaos and adrenaline, and the kind of exhaustion that doesn't wash off in the shower. I loved it. Within 2 years, I was nominated for Nurse of the Year at the department level. I didn't win. But the nomination caught the attention of someone who would change my trajectory. Dr. Marcus Webb was the attending physician in our ER, mid-40s, calm under pressure, the kind of doctor who actually learned nurses' names. He pulled me aside one afternoon between traumas and said something I wasn't expecting. "You don't just treat patients, Shelby. You see them. That's rare. Have you thought about going further?" He meant nurse practitioner, a master's degree, independent practice authority, the ability to run my own clinic someday. It was a path I hadn't considered because no one had ever suggested I was capable of it. Dr. Webb wrote my recommendation letter. I applied for a scholarship at Ohio State. I got in. During those years, I didn't date. Not once in 5 years. It wasn't a conscious decision at first. I was too busy, too broke, too focused. But eventually, I had to be honest with myself. I didn't trust anyone to stay. My family had taught me that love was conditional, that it could be revoked in a single evening, and that the people who said, "I'll always be here," were often the first to leave. That kind of lesson doesn't unlearn easily. I finished my NP in 2021, and almost immediately, an idea took root. One that had been growing quietly since the night Diane Hollis pulled me out of a freezing car. A clinic. Free. For the people nobody else was treating. Specifically, homeless veterans, men and women who served this country and came home to nothing. Men like my father, if he'd been less lucky. I chose that population for a very specific reason. I knew what it felt like to be abandoned by the people who were supposed to protect you. And I never wanted anyone to sit alone with that feeling the way I did. I want to pause here for a second. If you're watching this and you've ever been the family member no one believed, I see you. You're not crazy. You're not too much. You're just honest in a room full of people who aren't. Now, Tsio, do you think my father ever questioned whether he made the wrong call that night? Drop your answer in the comments. And if you haven't yet, that subscribe button really does help. Now, back to where we were. It was year 8. I was deep in my NP program, pulling clinical rotations at a family practice on the east side of Columbus. My life had settled into a rhythm, demanding, exhausting, but mine. I had an apartment I paid for, a career I was building, a circle of people who showed up without conditions. I'd stopped thinking about the Bennetts every day. It happened less now. A flicker on my mother's birthday, a dull ache around Thanksgiving, then nothing again for weeks. Then Megan called. Her voice was off, not panicked, careful, like she was choosing each word before she said it. "Shell, I found something. I don't know if I should show you." She'd been transferring data from an old phone, her iPhone 5, the one she'd used in high school, to a new device. The migration pulled up years of text messages she'd forgotten existed. And buried in a thread with Jocelyn, dated November 2013, was a message she'd never paid attention to. She read it to me. "LOL, I moved my stuff to Shelby's desk just in time. Dad's about to lose it," followed by a laughing emoji. Megan's voice cracked. "I'm so sorry, Shell. I didn't even register it back then. I was 19 and stupid, and I didn't put it together. I should have." I didn't respond right away. The room was very still. I could hear the clock on my kitchen wall ticking. "Send it to me," I said. She did. A screenshot. Time-stamped. Jocelyn's name at the top. The text in a gray bubble, casual and grinning, like she was telling a joke. "LOL, I moved my stuff to Shelby's desk just in time." My stuff, her drugs, in my desk, on purpose. 12 years, Megan. I was 18 and freezing in a parking lot because of a text message with a laughing emoji. I saved the screenshot. I didn't show it to anyone. I didn't know what I'd do with it, or if I'd ever do anything at all. I just saved it in a folder on my phone and closed the screen. Some truths arrive too late to fix anything, but they still arrive. Building a clinic from nothing takes exactly as long as you think it does, plus 2 years. I spent 24 months writing grant proposals, sitting in meetings with nonprofit boards, touring vacant retail spaces with leaky ceilings, and learning a vocabulary I never expected. Zoning variances, 501c, 3 compliance, Medicaid reimbursement structures. Dr. Webb served as medical advisor. Diane connected me with a veterans advocacy network she'd worked with through the hospital. A regional foundation that supports veteran health services awarded us our anchor grant. We opened in a converted storefront on Livingston Avenue. I named it Second Chance Community Clinic. Free or sliding scale care for homeless and uninsured veterans. Primary care, mental health referrals, prescription assistance. The basics that shouldn't be luxuries but are. A reporter from the Columbus Dispatch wrote a feature. Then NBC4 did a 3-minute segment for the evening news. They filmed me taking a patient's blood pressure, which felt strange. I'd done it 10,000 times, and suddenly there was a camera. The headline in the Dispatch read, "Local nurse practitioner opens free clinic for homeless veterans in Franklinton." I didn't build the clinic to prove anyone wrong. I didn't build it for a headline. I built it because someone should have been there for me on November 14, 2013. And no one was. And I never wanted another person to sit in the cold, wondering if anyone would come. I named it Second Chance, not because I believe in second chances. I named it because I know what it feels like when nobody gives you one at all. The article ran on a Sunday. It circulated locally, picked up a few shares online, and faded into the news cycle within a week. But it didn't fade for everyone. Somewhere in Dayton, Ohio, an hour west of Columbus, that article landed on a screen it was never meant to reach. I didn't know that yet. There's a nightstand in my apartment. Plain oak, second-hand, one drawer. Inside that drawer, I keep 3 things. Not mementos, not keepsakes. Evidence. Evidence of a life that happened before this one. The first is a photograph. My family at Cedar Point Amusement Park, the summer I was 12. All 4 of us. My mother's arm around my shoulders, Jocelyn making a peace sign, my father squinting into the sun with something that might have been a smile. It's the last photo where everyone is present and no one is pretending. The second is a bracelet. Thin silver chain with a tiny star charm. My mother gave it to me on my 16th birthday. She fastened it around my wrist and said, "For my little star." I stopped wearing it the night I left, but I didn't throw it away. The third is the envelope, yellowed now. 12 years of sitting in the dark will do that. The seal is still intact, still closed, still untouched, and across the front, in sharp black ink, in handwriting I know as well as my own, return to sender. I don't reread the letter. I don't need to. I remember every word. Dad, I didn't do it. Please believe me. I love you. I just want to come home. I was 18. I spent a stamp and every ounce of dignity I had left on those sentences. He spent 0 seconds on them. I closed the drawer. I went to work. That's what I did. By that point, I had both pieces, the letter and the screenshot, 2 halves of a truth that no one had asked for. I didn't go looking for my family. I had no reason to. My life was full. My work had meaning. The people who mattered were already in it. Everything stayed quiet for 12 years. Then one evening, I opened LinkedIn on my couch after a long shift, scrolled past a few connection requests, and stopped. A message. From a name I hadn't seen in over a decade. Gerald A. Bennett. He'd used LinkedIn because I'd blocked his number years ago and my Facebook was private. But LinkedIn, professional, public, was the gap in the wall I hadn't thought to seal. The message was short, carefully worded, the kind of sentence structure that suggested he'd written and rewritten it multiple times. Shelby, it's your dad. I saw an article about your clinic. I always knew you had it in you. I'd like to talk. Mom misses you. We all do. I read it 3 times. My hands weren't steady. Not from fear, from anger. The slow, deep kind that lives underneath everything and only surfaces when someone says exactly the wrong thing in exactly the wrong way. I always knew you had it in you. You always knew. You. The man who told me I wasn't worth the trouble. The man who blocked my number and returned my letter and let his other daughter sleep in my bed the same night I slept in a parking lot. You always knew I had it in me? That's what you're going with? I closed the laptop, laced up my running shoes, ran 5 miles, came back, showered, sat on the edge of my bed with wet hair and a pulse I couldn't slow down. I called Diane. He found me. A pause. I could hear her put something down. A mug, maybe. What do you want to do? I don't know yet. Then don't do anything yet. I didn't. Not that night. Not the next day. Not for 2 full weeks. The message sat in my inbox like a grenade someone had placed gently on a shelf and walked away from. But Gerald Bennett was never a patient man. And within those 2 weeks, he sent another message, one that changed everything. The second message was longer, more confident, like my silence was agreement. I'm telling you, Shelby, the family would love to hear from you. Aunt Gladys asks about you all the time. Your mother hasn't stopped talking about that article. Jocelyn's been asking about you too. Maybe we could set up a call. I think it's time. Jocelyn's been asking about you. Jocelyn, who hadn't spoken my name in 12 years, was suddenly asking about me. I almost laughed. Almost. I called Megan. What's going on with my father? Megan sighed. The kind of sigh that means I'm about to tell you something you won't like. Shell, he's been showing that article to everyone. Like, everyone. He shared it on Facebook. He brought it up at Ron and Gladys's barbecue last month. He's telling people you decided to do things on your own and that the family always supported you from a distance. I set my coffee down. He said what? He's rewriting the whole thing. The drug story is gone. Now it's, you were independent, you wanted to leave, he respected your decision, he's acting like he launched you. He threw me out, Megan. I know. He told them I was on drugs. I know. And now he's saying he supported me? He shared the Dispatch article with the caption, Proud Dad Moment. 61 likes. I sat with that for a long time. My father hadn't just abandoned me. He'd written the story of my life twice, once as a cautionary tale and once as a success story. And both times, he cast himself as the hero. The first version, we did everything we could. The second version, she got her strength from us. Neither version included the truth. Neither version included a frozen parking lot, a returned letter, or a laughing emoji. He didn't want me back. He wanted the narrative back, and he needed my cooperation to finish writing it. I sat on it for 3 more days. I went to work. I saw patients. I restocked supply closets and reviewed intake forms and did everything exactly the same as before. But underneath it all, something was building. Not rage, not revenge, just clarity. The kind that comes when you've been holding a question for 12 years and the answer finally stops being complicated. I called Diane on a Tuesday evening, told her about the second message, told her about the Facebook post, told her about the rewritten narrative. She listened. Then, you don't owe him a thing, but if you write back, write for you, not for him. I thought about what would happen if I stayed silent. Gerald would continue telling the family his version. Aunt Gladys, Uncle Ron, every cousin and in-law. They'd all believe the story of the proud father and the independent daughter. I'd be erased twice. Once when he threw me out, and again when he pretended he didn't. That was the thing I couldn't live with. Not his cruelty. I'd survived that. His revision. The idea that he could take 12 years of my suffering and repackage it into a feel-good Facebook caption. That my truth would never exist outside my own head. I didn't sit down to write a revenge letter. I sat down to tell the truth. There's a difference, and it matters. I opened my laptop, created a new document, and I started with the date, November 14th, 2013. It took me 3 hours. Not because I didn't know what to say, because I kept stopping to breathe. Every sentence was a door I'd closed years ago, and opening them all at once was like walking through my own wreckage. When I finished, I attached 2 files, a photograph of the envelope, sealed, yellowed, returned to sender in his handwriting, and Megan's screenshot. I copied the text into a LinkedIn reply. Read it once. Read it again. Hit send. 11:47 p.m. I closed my laptop, went to bed, didn't sleep. I had no idea what would happen next. But I knew this. Whatever Gerald Bennett felt when he read that message, that was no longer my weight to carry. I'd given the truth back to the person who made it. This is what I wrote. I'm going to read it to you exactly as I sent it, because you've earned the full version. Dad, you said I wasn't worth the trouble. Here's what happened after you decided that. November 14th, 2013. 26 degrees. You told me to pack my things. You didn't ask if the drugs were mine. You didn't let me speak. You pointed at the door and I walked through it with my clothes in a garbage bag. November 14th. First night. I parked in the Walmart lot on Route 35. The heater was broken. I draped a hoodie over my legs and didn't sleep. November 15th. Second night. The library parking lot. A security guard knocked on my window at 3 a.m. He asked me if I was okay. That man, a total stranger, was the first person to check on me in 48 hours. Not you, not Mom, not Jocelyn. November 16th. Third night. I called you. Blocked. I called Mom. No answer. I called Jocelyn. Voicemail. 3 contacts. 3 silences. At 11 p.m., I called my friend Rachel. Her mother, Diane Hollis, drove 32 minutes across town to a library parking lot to pick up your daughter. She found me shaking, with purple lips and white fingertips. She's a nurse. She recognized early-stage hypothermia when she saw it. A stranger's mother saved my life. Mine didn't answer the phone. December 2013. 2 weeks after you threw me out, I wrote you a letter. By hand. I told you the drugs weren't mine. I told you I loved you. I told you I just wanted to come home. You mailed it back unopened. Your handwriting. Return to sender. You didn't spend 1 second on it. You told the family I had a drug problem. You told them I chose the streets. You rewrote my life so you could sleep at night. That was the first part, but it wasn't the part that broke him. The message continued. Here's what you missed, Dad. All of it. Every milestone. Every moment you weren't there for. Not because you couldn't be, but because you chose not to be. 2014. I got my GED while working double shifts at a pharmacy counter. No one clapped. No one took a picture. I went home and studied for the next test. 2015. I started nursing school at Columbus State. I paid for it with federal loans and a second job bussing tables at a diner. You paid for Jocelyn's art degree in full. She dropped out junior year. 2017. I graduated. Summa cum laude. 4 people were in the audience. A woman who owed me nothing, her daughter, and 2 coworkers from a restaurant. You weren't one of them. Mom wasn't one of them. I crossed that stage alone. 2019. I completed my nurse practitioner program at Ohio State. I treated my first patient independently on a Monday afternoon. When I got home, I picked up my phone to call someone. The person I wanted to call was you. I put the phone down. 2021. I opened a free clinic for homeless veterans. The kind of men you served with, Dad. The kind of men who came home from war and found out that the people who were supposed to be there had already moved on. I named it Second Chance. Not because I believe in second chances, but because I know what it feels like when nobody gives you one. 2025. You found me online. You said, I always knew you had it in you. You didn't know. You weren't there. Knowing requires presence, Dad. You were absent for 12 years. You didn't just miss my life. You chose to. I paused there, took a breath. Then I wrote the last section, the one with the attachments. One more thing, Dad. You kicked me out because you found drugs in my desk. I told you they weren't mine. You didn't believe me. You didn't even ask. They were never mine. I've attached a screenshot. It's a text message from Jocelyn to a mutual friend, dated November 2013, the same month you threw me out. It reads, LOL, I moved my stuff to Shelby's desk just in time. Dad's about to lose it. Followed by a laughing emoji. Your golden child put her drugs in my desk drawer and stood in the hallway watching you throw me out. She measured my bedroom window for new curtains before I finished packing a garbage bag. And then she spent 12 years playing the loyal daughter while I slept in a car. I've also attached a photo of the letter, the one I sent you 2 weeks later, sealed, unopened, your handwriting across the front, return to sender. Your 18-year-old daughter wrote, I love you, I just want to come home. And you mailed it back like junk mail. I kept both, not as weapons, as proof that I tried and you didn't. I'm not writing this to hurt you, I'm writing it because you asked to reconnect, and I think you should know what you're reconnecting to. Not the version you told the family, not the proud dad moment you posted on Facebook, the real version. I don't hate you, Dad. but I can't give you the reunion you're looking for. You're not reaching out because you miss me. You're reaching out because my name was in the newspaper and you need a new story to tell. I won't be your story, I'm my own. Shelby. That was the reply. Every word. I sent it at 11:47 on a Tuesday night and closed my laptop. I didn't know when he'd read it. I didn't know how he'd react. I only found out later. Through Megan, through Gladys, through the slow, jagged chain of people who witnessed what came after. Here's what I was told. Gerald read the message in the living room. Patricia was in the kitchen. He was sitting in his recliner, the same one he'd been sitting in for 20 years, scrolling through LinkedIn on his phone. He opened my reply expecting, I imagine, something warm, something grateful, something that confirmed the story he'd been telling. He read it in silence. Patricia said she heard nothing. No reaction, no gasp, no curse, just quiet. And then the sound of the front door opening and closing. She looked out the kitchen window. Gerald walked across the yard, opened the driver's door of his truck, a blue Ford F-150, Marine Corps sticker on the rear bumper, and sat behind the wheel. He didn't start the engine. He didn't turn on the lights. He just sat there. Patricia waited 10 minutes, then 20. She put on her coat and walked outside with a glass of water. She tapped on the window. He didn't open the door. Through the glass, she could hear him. He was crying. Not the quiet kind. Not the composed, stoic kind you'd expect from a man who built his identity on discipline and control. The kind that shakes your shoulders. The kind you can't stop. She stood outside that truck for a long time. Eventually, she went back inside. An hour later, a full hour, Gerald walked back through the front door. His eyes were swollen. He didn't say a word. He placed his phone on the kitchen table, opened to my message, and pushed it toward Patricia. Read it. She did. Then she cried too. Gerald sat down across from her, and for the first time, according to what Megan later heard from Gladys, he asked the question he should have asked 12 years ago. Did you know? About Jocelyn? Patricia shook her head. Gerald picked up his phone and called Jocelyn. She didn't answer. He called again. Voicemail. He called a third time, a fourth. She never picked up. The next morning, he drove to her apartment. That was it. That was the reply. If you're still here, genuinely, thank you. Now here's my question. Do you think my father's tears were for me or for himself? Because I've thought about that for a long time and I still don't have a clear answer. Let me know in the comments. And if this story hits close to home, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Here's what happened next. I wasn't there for what happened at Jocelyn's apartment. Everything I know came through Megan, who heard it from Patricia, who heard it from Gerald. A chain of voices relaying the moment a family cracked along a fault line that had been there for 12 years. Gerald drove to Jocelyn's place the next morning, early, before 8. He knocked on the door hard enough that her neighbor opened theirs first. Jocelyn answered in a bathrobe. Dad? What's going? He held up his phone, the screenshot on the screen. Is this real? She looked at it. Her expression did something complicated. A flicker of recognition, then the mask sliding into place. That's taken out of context. Your sister slept in a car for 3 nights, in November, because of you. You're the one who kicked her out, not me. You're right. I did, because I believed you. That landed. You could tell, Patricia said, because Jocelyn didn't have a follow-up. For the first time in her life, the script ran out. Gerald didn't yell. He didn't slam anything. His voice, Patricia said, was the quietest she'd ever heard it. And that was somehow worse. Don't call the house for a while. He turned and walked back to his truck. Didn't look back. Jocelyn stood in the doorway. I'm told she called Patricia within the hour, sobbing, not apologizing, not explaining, but performing. Dad is attacking me because of Shelby. This is so unfair. I can't believe you're all taking her side. My mother, the woman who had spent 25 years choosing silence, said something she'd never said before. No, he's hurting because of what you did. So am I. And then she hung up. Megan told me Patricia's hands were shaking when she set the phone down, but she set it down, and she didn't pick it back up. The truth moved through the family the way truth always does when it's been delayed. fast, messy, and without anyone's permission. Gerald called Gladys that same week, his younger sister. The one who'd called me once years ago and taken his word over mine. He told her everything. The screenshot, the letter, the parking lot, the hypothermia. Gladys was quiet for a long time. Then, "You let that girl sleep in a car, Gerald. She was a child." "I know." "And you told me she was on drugs." "I know." Gladys hung up and called me. I almost didn't answer. Her number had been absent from my phone for over a decade, and seeing it felt like a hallucination. But I picked up. "Sweetheart," her voice was thick. "I'm sorry. I should have checked. I should have asked you directly. I took his word and I shouldn't have." I sat on my couch and stared at the wall across the room. A small crack ran along the baseboard I'd been meaning to fix for months. "You believed what was easier to believe, Aunt Gladys." "Yes, and I'm ashamed of that." I didn't tell her it was okay, because it wasn't. But I didn't hang up either. Uncle Ron cut contact with Jocelyn entirely. No announcement, no drama. He just stopped responding to her messages. One of my younger cousins posted something vague on social media. Blood doesn't mean loyalty. And I knew the ripple had reached the edges. Jocelyn posted her own response on Instagram 3 days later. "Sometimes family is the most toxic thing in your life." No context, no names, just the kind of sentence that sounds deep until you realize it was written by the person who caused the toxicity. Nobody reacted, not a single like, not one comment. And I know this might sound satisfying, the villain getting her comeuppance, but I want to be honest, it didn't feel triumphant. It felt heavy. Watching a family unravel in slow motion isn't a victory. It's just what happens when the truth shows up 12 years late and there's no clean place left to put it. A week after the confrontation with Jocelyn, my father sent me an email. Not through LinkedIn this time, through my clinic's public contact address, the one listed on our website for appointment inquiries and community outreach. He'd found it the way anyone would. He typed it into the general inquiries field like a stranger. "Shelby, I read your message 7 times. I read the letter. The one I sent back. Your mother found a draft copy in your old desk, in the room I let your sister take. I read every word. I can't undo what I did. I'm not going to list excuses because there aren't any that hold up. I was wrong. About all of it. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I needed you to know I hear you now." I read it at my kitchen table after a 10-hour shift, with a bowl of leftover soup going cold in front of me. I didn't respond that night, or the next. It took me 4 days, not because I didn't know what to say, but because I wanted to say it right, without cruelty, without performance, without any door opened wider than I could handle. "Thank you for hearing me. That's more than I got 12 years ago. I'm not going to pretend this is okay. It's not. I don't hate you, but I can't trust you. Not yet, maybe not ever. If you want any kind of relationship with me, it starts with accountability. Not one email, not one apology. Years of it. And it starts with Jocelyn admitting what she did. To me, directly. Until then, I need space. Please respect that." 2 weeks of silence. Then 3 words. "I understand." The same week, my mother sent her own message. Separate from Gerald. Her own words, for the first time in 12 years. "I should have been your mother first, and his wife second. I'll spend the rest of my life trying to earn that back." I read it twice, closed my laptop, and went for a long walk in the dark. 2 months after the reply, the clinic was ready for its official grand opening. We'd been operating quietly for a while, seeing patients, building referral networks, stocking the pharmacy shelves. But this was the formal event. Ribbon cutting, press coverage, community turnout. The kind of day I'd spent 2 years working toward. The guest list wrote itself. Megan, Rachel, Diane, Dr. Webb, colleagues from the hospital, representatives from the Veterans Foundation, a reporter from the Dispatch who'd covered our launch, a crew from NBC4 coming to film, 40-plus veterans we'd already served, some of whom I'd treated personally. I didn't invite my father. I didn't invite my mother. I didn't invite Jocelyn. But Aunt Gladys called the week before. "Can I come?" I didn't hesitate. "Of course, Aunt Gladys." She paused. "I know I don't deserve to be there." "It's not about deserving. You asked. That's enough." The night before the event, I sat at the clinic after everyone had left, running through the setup checklist. Chairs in rows, podium by the entrance, banner hung straight. Diane had helped me write the speech. I'd been practicing it in my car all week, which is exactly as glamorous as it sounds. She called me that evening. "How are you feeling?" "Nervous." "About the speech?" "About all of it." She was quiet for a moment. "Tell them why you built it." "That's enough." I slept 3 hours that night, woke up at 5, put on the white blouse I'd bought for the occasion. Nothing fancy, just clean and pressed. Draped my stethoscope around my neck because it felt right, and drove to the clinic at dawn. When I pulled into the lot at 7 a.m. to run final checks, there were no other cars yet. The sun was just coming over the rooftops on Livingston Avenue. The banner rippled in a light breeze. Then, at 8:15, I glanced at the far end of the parking lot. A truck, blue, Ford F-150, Marine Corps sticker on the rear bumper. My hands stopped moving. He was already here. I didn't go to the truck. I went inside and finished setting up. By 10 o'clock, the lot was full. Veterans in worn jackets standing next to reporters with press badges, social workers I'd partnered with, local officials from the city councilwoman's office, Rachel in a sundress, holding a bouquet she'd brought without telling me, Diane in her best cardigan, eyes already glistening, and we hadn't even started. Dr. Webb spoke first, brief, measured. He talked about the gap in veteran health care and how one person's stubbornness, he looked at me when he said it and the crowd laughed, could move mountains. Then Diane cut the ribbon. Her hands trembled on the scissors, and when the red fabric fell, she pressed her fingers to her lips and turned away for a moment. Then it was me. I stepped up to the microphone. 40-something faces. Some of them had slept outside last week. Some of them were here because this clinic was the first place that hadn't asked them to prove they deserved help. 12 years ago, I said, I slept in a car with no one to call. Today, I stand here to make sure no one in this room ever feels that alone again. I took a breath. This clinic isn't about second chances for me. It's about first chances for the people this country forgot. I didn't mention the Bennetts. Not one word, not one hint. This day wasn't about them. The crowd clapped. Diane was full on crying. Gladys stood in the second row, clutching her purse, tears streaming down her face. And through the crowd, past the reporters and the veterans and the folding chairs, I saw him. Gerald. Standing at the edge of the parking lot, baseball cap pulled low, hands in his jacket pockets, not moving closer. Our eyes met, just for a second, across 40 feet of concrete and 12 years of silence. I didn't walk to him, I didn't wave, I didn't look away. I nodded. Once. Small. He nodded back. Then he stood there for another few minutes while the crowd filed inside for the tour, and then he got in his truck, started the engine, and drove away. After the tour, after the photos, after the last handshake and the last thank you, the clinic emptied out. Rachel left with a hug that lasted 30 seconds. Dr. Webb shook my hand and said, "You did good, kid," which coming from him was the equivalent of a standing ovation. Megan texted me a row of heart emojis and a voice note that was just her crying. Gladys held my face in both her hands before she left. "You come to my house for Christmas. You hear me? I'm making the pecan pie and nobody says no to my pecan pie." I laughed, genuinely laughed, for the first time all day. Then it was just me and Diane. We sat on the metal bench outside the front entrance. The banner was still up. A few stray programs fluttered on the ground. The sun was going down behind the strip mall across the street, and the light turned everything amber. "He came," I said. "He did. I don't know what to do with that." Diane didn't answer right away. She folded her hands in her lap, the same hands that had wrapped a blanket around me in a library parking lot 12 years ago. "You don't have to do anything with it," she said. "It's his to carry now." And sitting there in the fading light, I understood something I hadn't before. For 12 years, I'd carried the truth like a weight strapped to my back. The letter, the screenshot, the parking lots, the silence, all of it. The reply wasn't revenge. It was me handing the weight back to the person who created it. "Here. This is yours. I'm done holding it for you." For the first time in 12 years, I felt light. Not because my father cried in his truck, not because Jocelyn was exposed, not because the family finally knew, because I no longer carried the truth alone. When I got home that night, the volunteers had left a card on my desk, 43 signatures, veterans, staff, friends. Inside, someone had written, "You gave us a place to belong." On the reception table, there was an envelope. No name. Inside, $500 in cash and a slip of paper. For the clinic. G. I put it in the donation box. No exceptions. No special treatment. Just another contribution to a place that existed because someone once decided a girl in a parking lot wasn't worth the trouble. I'm not going to stand here and tell you what to learn from my story. I don't think it's my place to give you a lesson. But I can tell you what I learned from living it. I don't tell this story so you'll hate my father. Gerald Bennett was a man driven by fear. He lost a brother-in-arms to addiction after the Gulf War, watched a man he trusted destroy himself, one fix at a time. That fear burrowed into him and never left. When he smelled something in the house and found a bag in his daughter's desk, every alarm in his body went off at once. He wasn't thinking. He was reacting to a ghost from 30 years ago. He was wrong. He was catastrophically, unforgivably wrong. But I understand the machinery that made him wrong, and that matters to me. I also don't tell this story so you'll feel sorry for me. I have a career, a clinic, a life I'm proud of. I built it with my own hands, on a foundation laid by people who chose me when my own family didn't. That's not tragedy. That's resilience. What I want you to take, if anything, is this. You have the right to set a boundary without writing a 5-page justification for it. You have the right to say this is not okay, even when everyone around you has agreed to pretend it is. And you have the right to refuse a reunion that's designed to benefit the people who hurt you, not the person who was hurt. Forgiveness is a door. I get to decide when, and if, I open it. And nobody, no matter how much they cry, no matter how many emails they send, gets to knock it down. That's not bitterness. That's just knowing where I end and they begin. It's been a little over a year since I sent that reply. The clinic is doing well. We serve over 200 veterans a month now. We've added a part-time therapist and a benefits navigator who helps guys file their VA claims. Last quarter, we got a grant to extend our hours on Saturdays. It's not glamorous work. Most days, it's blood pressure checks and medication refills and long conversations with people who just need someone to sit with them for 10 minutes. But it's the most important thing I've ever done. I'm seeing someone. His name is Kyle. He's a firefighter. We met at a community health fair. He was manning the fire safety booth next to our clinic's table, and we argued about whether CPR dummies are creepy. He's kind and steady, and he doesn't try to fix me. When I told him this whole story, he didn't say, "You should forgive them." He said, "What do you need?" And I knew. My father emails once a month. Short messages. Never pushing. Sometimes it's a question about the clinic, sometimes it's just thinking of you. I respond to about half of them. We haven't seen each other since the grand opening. Our relationship, if you can call it that, is like two strangers trying to remember a language they used to share. Awkward, careful, uncertain. My mother and I meet every couple of months, always at a cafe, never at the Bennett house. She started seeing a therapist, her first time at 62. We talk about small things. We're not ready for the big ones yet. Jocelyn hasn't apologized, hasn't reached out, hasn't acknowledged anything. I don't wait for it. Some people never arrive at the truth, no matter how clearly you lay it out for them. Diane is still my family. She always will be. She hates the phrase second mom, and every time I use it she says, "I'm not your second anything, I'm just someone who answered the phone." But she smiles when she says it, and so do I. One more thing. A few months ago, I found out that my mother, using her old fake Facebook account, the one Jocelyn used to hold over her, had submitted an anonymous nomination for the Ohio Nurse of the Year award. She'd typed up a letter about my work, my clinic, my patients. She submitted it under a name I didn't recognize. I didn't win. But I read the nomination form after a colleague forwarded it, and I recognized her voice in every sentence. Tentative, careful, full of love she still didn't know how to deliver in person. She's trying, in the only way she knows how. It's not enough. But I see it. I still have the Honda, the 2003 Civic with the cracked heater. It hasn't run in years. The battery's dead. The tires are flat. There's a permanent fog on the inside of the windshield that I don't think will ever come off. It sits in the back lot behind the clinic, tucked between a dumpster and the fence, and every single person on my staff has asked me at least once why I don't just junk it. I keep it because I need it there. On the hard days, and there are still hard days, even now, I walk around back, and I put my hand on the hood, and I stand there for a minute. The metal is cold or warm depending on the season, and either way, it brings me right back. To the girl in the Walmart lot, to the hoodie draped over her legs, to the frost on the windshield, and the silence on her phone, and the 26 degrees that almost took her. She was 18, she was terrified, and she was completely, totally alone. She deserved to be saved, and because no one came, she saved herself. If you're in that car right now, literally or otherwise, I want you to know something. You don't need anyone to open the door for you. You just need to find the person who will say, "You're safe now." And if you can't find that person yet, then be that person for yourself. Because you can. I know you can. I'm proof. My father told me I wasn't worth the trouble. 12 years later, 200 veterans a month walk through my doors because someone decided they were. My name is Shelby Bennett. I'm 30 years old, and I was always worth the trouble. Thank you for staying until the end. That means more than you know. If this story reminded you of your own, or someone you love, please share this video. It might reach the person who needs it tonight. I'd love to hear from you. What would you have written in that reply? Drop it in the comments. I read every single one. And there's another story in the description that I think you'll connect with. Click it before you go. And remember, you're always worth the trouble.